Okay. All right. Let's do this. I hope you have a little bit of a stretch. Do whatever you need to do. There are 13 more slides that I'm going to do. If you don't finish in class, I'm sorry, but it will still be available on my YouTube. This is the question that we ended Tuesday's lesson with, but never finished. We asked if you liked Julmust, and I was wondering if everybody did. So each person, this is how I would summarize it. We started writing this down, I remember. So we put each person did 3.5 glasses. Then we had 16 centiliters per glass. And we wanted to know... Oh, and we also found out that there were 56 liters. So we want to know how many people were at the party. So that's how we summarized it. And that's what a great skill, a fantastic skill for when you are doing your test. This is a really good way, really good way of showing work. So good, that's a really big, weird looking smiley face. So we want to find out how much there was. So if we had, each person had 3.5 times by 16, I can count one decimal place there. I'm going to multiply those like this. And I'm going to remember to put one decimal place back in. So 6 times by 5 is 30. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. Placeholder, because we're really multiplying by 10, right? By this 1 means 10. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. Add those up. 0, 6, 5, and then put the decimal back in. Boom. So look at this. If each person drank, so we'd have 56. So let's see, after this we'd have 56 centiliters. And it tells us right here that there were 56 liters. So what I have to do, what I have to do is figure out how many centiliters 56 liters is. If you remember learning, King Henry does usually drink chocolate milk. And we're going from centiliters, here's the liters, centi to the other one. We're going to go 1, 2. We have 2 decimal places that we have to move this. So from liters to centiliters, we would have 5,600, because we moved the decimal 2 times that way, centiliters. So, since we had 5,600 centiliters, how many altogether, and each person drank 56 centiliters, how many people is that? Well, 56 can go into 56 once, so there would be 100 people. So this is going to go away in 10 seconds. If you need to watch this again to write it down better later, you can. Then this was another one, another warm-up that we're not going to have time to do, but these are all very important. You'll notice that these questions are very similar to what we just did on the last warm-up. So we're going to go through how to do those right now. So the first one was 0.02 times by 67. I would count 3 decimal places. So this is how I would write it on my paper. And I would go 3 decimal places. And then I would do 67 times by 3. So 3 times 7 is 21. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20. But then I have those 3 decimal places. So from the right, I go over 1, 2, 3. My final answer for this would be 0.201. Then the next one, same thing. Count the decimal places. I see that there are 3 decimal places. And then I'm going to do what's left. So 3004 times 5. So 5 times 4 is 20. Oops, there's supposed to be a 2 up there. 5 times 0 is 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. 5 times 0 is 0. And then 5 times 3 is 15. And then we have 3 decimal places that we counted. So the final answer for this will be 15.02, because we don't need to write the last one. Then the next one, 6,700 divided by 67. I can see that 6,700 is the same thing as doing 67 times 100. So then 67 divided by 67 is 1. And so then the answer is just going to be 100. Then the next one, we're going kind of fast. So if it's too fast, pause the video and come back. So we have 8 can't go into 4, but it can go into 45 5 times with 5 left over. Then 8 goes into 52 6 times, and as a reminder, that's 48. So 8 times 6 is 48. So I would do 52 minus 48 in my head and get 4, and then a 4 would go right there. So now I'm looking into 8 going into 45. So 8 can go into 45 5 times again, but then I get, and so that would be 40. So I get 5 left over, which is going to go right there. Whoops. And then 8 goes into 52 again, 6 times. And again, we get 4 left over. Now 8 goes into 44 5 times again. But then we have 4 left over, and it goes into that 6 times. So our final answer is 56, 56, 56. So then we're just going to keep on plugging away. Sum means adding. Notice I wrote that on here. 1/4 means 0.25. So I would do 6.5 and line it up with the decimal for 0.25. And when I have nothing over this 5 right here, there would be a 0 right there. So 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 6 plus 0 is 6. So the answer is 6.75. Then if Clara wants 1/3 of her allowance for 8 months, save enough money to buy a new bicycle, almost the same thing as Leon, but instead our final amount was 2,000. Then we will do 2,000. I'm going to do it down here. 2,000 divided by 8. So 8 doesn't go into 2, but it goes into 20 twice. And if I did 20 minus 16, because that's 8 times 2, I would get 4. So 8 goes into 40 5 times perfectly. Then 8 goes into 0 times. So that's how much she would have from the third, but now we know that we're supposed to do this 250 times by 3. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. And then 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7. So she would save 700. She would get 700 50 kroner a month. Oh, it even says right here, monthly allowance. It didn't say it right here, but it did not at the bottom. Okay, then 2/3 of my Dalahester are red, and the rest of them, which are 30, are blue. So if we know that 2/3 are red, to make a whole, what would the fraction be with 2/3 to make a whole? So 2/3 plus what equals 1? And that would have to be 1/3 are blue. And we know that it says that they are 30. We want to know how many are red. So if 1/3 of them are blue, and that's 30, then we can times by 3, as if there was no 30, and times by 3. So we would have the whole, all of it, would be 90. So if we did 2/3 of 90, where am I going to squeeze that? 2/3 of 90 means we divide by the bottom and times by the top. I believe that Elias had a different way of doing it, and he said just take this and times it by 2. It'll get us the same answer. That's 60. 60 red. 60 red Dalahester. All right. So this one is almost the same as what we already did as well from the last one. So if you have problems like this on your test, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, then you will be so prepared. So let's read this. It said 8 ice cream bars. So I'm going to say 8I for ice cream bars, plus 20C for candy bars, and spent 240. Then it says that the ice cream cones cost, and so instead of putting the I, we can make that instead. It says right here 14. So I'm going to have to do on my side, on the side here, 8 times 14. 8 times 4 is 32. Then 8 times 1 plus 3 is 11. So that means just the ice cream bars cost 112 kroner. So that would be 112 would go right there. So we're going to minus, so 240 minus 112. And let's see, we would get, I'm going to scoot it over. 2, 4 minus 1 is 3. 2 minus 1 is 1. 132. So they're going to have to cost something funky. So let's see. 240. I'm going to have to squeeze this. This is getting really squeezed in there. So we found that. And we know that we would have 20 candy bars would have to equal 132 kroner. Something's going to have to be a decimal. So we're going to have to do 132 divided by 20. This is really crammed in there. Good thing you have more room on your paper. Lucky students. And I don't want to divide by 20 because I think that's too hard. You can do it if you want to. I'm going to move the decimals. So I would be dividing by 20. I want to divide by 2. So I'm going to move the decimal back 1. So 2 can go into 13 6 times. Then I'd have 1 left over. 2 can go into 12 6 times. So each candy bar costs 66 kroner. Poof! Squished in there. Okay, that might be the end of your lesson or very close to it. So I'm going to pause here actually.